Ba-ba-da-da-ba-ba. Hi, we're live. Welcome. Everyone's going to be late today because it's daylight savings and no one has their shit together, and that's fine. It's Sunday morning. Oh, and just then Randall popped in. Welcome, Randall. I'm just doing the morning thing. First order of business is fucking T-shirts have finally come in. Look at this. Hoodies and T-shirts, they were delayed because of the New Angel Spit merch was slightly delayed for a week because of the big freeze in Texas, and my love to everyone in Texas. I hope you guys are doing all right. I hope you have the power back on. But these are on the merch, on the bloody website now, and I should put a link here if you want to help me out and get some cool shit. Most of this, I swear too much, don't I? Most of this stuff's already, boom! That didn't turn up on Facebook because we hate Facebook. And if you're watching on something else, watch this on Twitch, please. This is made possible with the amazing help of Angel Spit's Patreon members, and they really look after me, and I try very hard to look after them. Randall, can you hear my beautiful voice?
Yes, I can.
I can hear your beautiful voice.
I don't know about beautiful, but...
Oh, it's beautiful. Randall, it's this happy thing. Sure. I'm going to start with a question that Diana posed, and that is, how do you, and if anybody else has suggestions on this, please jump on in. How do you make music when, how do you make your art when the world is crushing around your head or the world is just doing its usual chaos? And my thoughts on that is that in the times of chaos, firstly, I'm going to say that people say depression and sadness is needed for making music or art. I greatly disagree. I totally disagree with that. And I actually think that for you to go down that path is a really dangerous mental health thing for you to go down. And I've noticed a lot of artists think that, oh, I need to be depressed or I need to be sad or I need to be moody to make the best art. And I profoundly disagree with that. It's not a safe attitude because as an artist, you're already locked inside the apocalyptic turmoil of your brain. Here's Adam. Speaking of apocalyptic turmoil in your brain, here's Adam. But what you have to do is make sure, hey, baby, we're talking about how to continue making art even though the world is crushing on your brain. Yeah, it's really important that you constantly make notes about everything that's going on in your life. And as a matter of fact, last night, I was making notes about something that's happening in someone else's life. And it made a really interesting, chorus idea. It made it really interesting beginnings of a structure. So no matter what, see, my theory is, and this is probably wrong, but I don't care, and it's probably not based in science, and I don't care. My theory is that the main core of your brain that does all the calculating and comes up with answers, which I think is called the cerebral cortex. I could be wrong on that. I'm sorry, I just have an eye on participants. Its job is to come up with solutions, and that's why when you sleep or at the weirdest time, that question that's been plaguing you, pop, it just comes into your brain. And it's the same thing with music and lyrics and all of these other things is that your brain is making sense of things. And if you are training your ways in this language of music or art or whatever, your brain will sometimes give you an answer in the shape of lyrics or in the shape of a bass line or in the shape of a sound or in the shape of a painting or a color scheme or something. And you always have to be open to that. And it's really interesting that I think it was Bach wrote on the beginning of every manuscript, he wrote something along the lines of, help me, Lord, I'm an empty vessel, speak through me, Lord. And then at the end of it, of writing this incredible thing, he wrote, all thanks be to God. So, and I don't mean to take anything away from Bach's spirituality or anybody who has that spiritual thing, but the point is that ideas come into your head, and then there's this huge argument of where it comes from. I don't care. Actually, that's a really interesting. That's an interesting conversation to have. But there's a lot of things that happen in the recesses of your brain, in the recesses of your brain, in your brain, in your brain, brain to brain to brain. That's my new song. Pretty good, huh? Fucking oath. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Does anybody else basically write everything down all the time? And when you're in a calm, centered place, I see your beautiful hand, Adam, and your hat. When you're in a calm, beautiful, centered place, that's when you make order of all of these lyrics and ideas. And that's really important because that's where it gets into the 99% perspiration thing and the 1% inspiration. So you got to catch that inspiration and process it. Adam, go.
Unmuting. Am I unmuted now?
What?
I thought I was muted,
What?
but I guess I wasn't. Okay. So I totally do that with the dreaming into the lyrics thing. Like that's where a lot of my best lyrics have come from. I've said it before on these shows, like driving long distances and that space in between sleep and consciousness being the best provider of lyrics. That's the time that the poetry monster wants to run through my head. But as you were saying, you know, I mean, we've talked about it before. I write everything down on little scraps of paper and backs of flyers and envelopes and stuff like that, and then eventually compile that into something else, I guess, you know, sometimes. Oh, the cerebral cortex, by the way, is the outside layers on the brain, but that is where all of the higher thought processes happen.
Fantastic. Excellent.
Brains are cool.
Brains are awesome. Let's hear it for the brain. I'm very caffeinated right now, as you can tell. Randall, do you have anything you want to add to this, or any questions, or anything at all?
Maybe.
Okay.
Okay, so you were saying the thing about the depression and being a depressed artist and all of that stuff. I don't really buy into that either. Like you were saying, that's super duper dangerous. Depression makes you not want to do anything. And it's the perfect way to get nothing done.
Yeah.
Like, if you feel like you need to wallow in it to get anything done, you're never going to get anything done. I was in the middle of reworking an older song of mine that was written in a very not good time. And working on that song that I was able to do, staying out of that pit when that was going on, kind of put me back in one. And I can't mess with it right now. I have to do other things. But it's knowing when it's time to do it and when it's time not to. And when you don't feel like it, that's when you go back to those little sketches or the little noodled out, like, little guitar part or the little drum pattern you put together or the little lyrics you scribbled down or hummed into a microphone or whatever, and just start recording them, putting them in, try to build something out of them, see where they go. If they don't go anywhere, don't stress yourself out. Try another one. And eventually you'll stumble onto one where it feels like it's working. And then you don't, it goes somewhere. Then you can go back to the other things because now you got the energy because, whoa, I just did this really cool thing. And that's how I do it. That's how I've been doing it. And I have like 3 or 4 complete tracks except for the mixing process right now over like the past, like, what, I don't know, 4 months maybe, since I actually really got back into doing music again finally, because life's out of the way.
Awesome.
But yeah, I mean, I guess that covered the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
I have a question in relate to this, and that question is, how do you get out of a funk? When you're in a funk, when you're in a depressed state, and well, obviously we don't want to go too low here because I'm not a therapist, so we shouldn't talk, and we're being streamed right now, so I can't help you in subjects of mental health. I can help you with in subjects of rock. So I want to stick to that rock thing. Is that how do you get yourself out of a funk, even if that's writer's block, even if it's whatever? I ask this question 1,000 times, and I can never ask this question enough. Go.
Have more hobbies.
That's the key.
Keep going.
No, that's it. There's like either that or
I do that too.
Yeah, that's like the Bugs Bunny cartoon when him and Elmer are switching hats all the time, right?
Yeah.
And, like the hat lands on them, and they become the other character. Yeah, you got to put on the hat.
Well, you have to put on the rock star costume to be a rock star.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do it when I'm gonna actually go to work, and it's like time to do this music, put this song together. I put the clothes on. You
Yeah,
know,
I joke about that too, Randall. I joke about going from roadie clothes to rock star clothes. So it's time to take off it's time to go from roadie clothes to rock star clothes. We got to hit play.
right? You put on your supervillain uniform and you go do your thing. Like, um, and another thing about the having multiple hobbies thing, what helps me a lot, like the writer's block or artist block or whatever. I never have both at the same time. Like, I draw and I paint and all that other stuff too. When it's not a visual art day, it's usually the day to like let's write some music or something. And if I sit down and the music thing is not working and nothing's coming out good and I hate it all and nothing is working at all, I'm like, okay, it's art day today. And then I do the other thing. And it keeps me working on both. It doesn't always flip flop. Sometimes it's 2 days of one thing and one of the other or whatever. But it balances itself out and I actually create stuff like pretty much all the time.
Can I actually jump in? I'm really sorry, Adam. I'm actually going to throw it to you. I did a boo boo. I love OBS so much, but I have these shortcuts set up to mute microphones, and unfortunately, I pushed those shortcuts accidentally. So, Adam, when you were talking about your pushing play, can you just go back and hit that note again about pushing play because you were muted during that, and I really want people to hear what you said there. It was brilliant.
Okay, if I can remember what I said
The
there.
difficulty about pushing play.
Well,
Taking the first
pushing.
step,
Yeah.
Yeah, like
picking your foot up.
so that whole thing was muted. Oh, okay, gotcha. The rundown of that was that it's not so much taking the first step; it's lifting your foot. That's the hard part, and that as soon like once you hit play, it's everything has started. You're in a different world, and yeah, the whole going from roadie clothes to rock star clothes that we were just talking about. Um, yeah, and now I lost the other thought. Oh yeah, distraction. That was the other thought that I was having was just about distractions, which is really funny because that was real. I'm not actually making a joke there. But yeah, distracting yourself, like as Randall's saying, like if it's a bad audio day, work on a painting. Like um, having things that you can, talking about the brain too, having things that you can occupy the fiddly part of your brain, like something to do with your hands, so to speak, something to take that part of your brain and occupy it, means that the other part of your brain can kind of freewheel. Um, and so I think a lot of time, runners talk about runner's high. And I think that there's something that happens when you are so focused on doing something like working on a hobby or running or riding or whatever it is that you do, or driving, that takes that part of your brain, that active engagement part of your brain is actively engaged. So you've got the other subconscious parts of your brain are just kind of free to spin in those times. And so what ends up happening is you have those moments, that you have the subconscious thoughts drop into your conscious mind. And the real trick there, I found creatively, is not to ignore them. And the worst thing for me, Carl, is you said you have everything set up to flip with one switch. The worst thing for me is that I don't have a permanent space that I can create in for any one thing. So every time I shift gears, I have to completely rebuild my space to do it. And so that takes a lot of time. Like if I want to start painting, I need several days to build myself a place to paint, and that means taking down my place to DJ. I am a bit jealous of people that have nice studios that they can go from one corner of the room to work on music and go to another corner of the room to work on their tool bench and another corner of their room to work on their oil paints or whatever. But
I hate those people. Go on.
I'm jealous of them for literally just that reason. You know, that's the conundrum of being a starving artist, isn't it? Is that, you know, we're always like $5 away from the next tube of paint.
Yeah.
And we're one tube of paint away from finishing that next idea, and we're one idea away from that next masterpiece or whatever it is. You're always chasing some increment. It's like Zeno's paradox, right? You never make it all the way across the room.
Yeah.
You get halfway there and halfway there and halfway of that and half of that and half of that and half of that, and you never make it to 2.
Julius, welcome. Unless somebody has a question they want to throw in or a comment they want to make, I actually want to talk about process a little bit. So if anybody else has a question, like a pressing question, please jump in. Okay, so during the week I was having a chat to Eric from Spank the Nun. I was about to say Spank my mum. It's a mum joke. We started already. Thank you. I shouldn't say that. That's going to become a thing now. Shit. I just ruined a band name. I remember when Angel Spit played, I can't remember, it was some German festival. Somebody wrote on the door, they spelt it wrong. So someone I crossed it out.
Oh, the angle spit?
Yeah. No, I crossed it out and wrote anal spit. And then someone said, someone wrote something really mean on your door. And I went, yeah, that was me. But anyway, I digress. I want to talk about process. Eric and myself were talking about the joy, because Eric is a proud dad of an EPS 16, not the Plus. Or was it an EPS? I can't remember. The Eldon Sonic sampler, and I'm an Emax junkie. And we were talking about the joy of, and I need to write the timeline in because I need to get my shit together. Hold on, I'm so sorry. We were talking about the joys of the way you used to create music, and the way there were no sample libraries, and there were no, and I don't mean to be sounding like an old bloke here. I'm trying to make a point that I want to throw out there. There were no sample libraries. You had a microphone, and you had to go out and record with that microphone, and you couldn't then pull it into SoundForge or whatever, compress it, denoise it, make it all nice and put it in your and put it on your sampler or in your DAW. You had to go out there, and I have fond memories of being in Lismore with a genius of industrial music named Lux Voltaire, who more people need to know about Lux Voltaire. He started a band called Taint, which you've probably heard of. Fucking Lux Voltaire started half the industrial movement in Australia. I digress. I have a great memory of Lux Voltaire, and we were in our early 20s, and we had taken his EPS 16 Plus under the house where he lived, because the microphone was only like, the cable was only 10 feet long. And we were going around banging stuff because it was up one of those, it was a Queenslander from Lismore, that the houses were high for the floods. And under the house, there was all this junk and metal and stuff. So we had to have an extension cord for the power of the EPS because we were saving it onto disk, because if you turn it off, you're going to lose those sounds. And we were going around bashing stuff. Oh, it clipped, bash it again. Hold on, turning down the volume, bash it. And we got the best fucking sounds. And we were talking about sound safaris briefly last week or the week before, but and Adam, when you were talking about the process involved with photography, it made me remember how something I really grapple with is that making music for me is fun when I'm not looking at a monitor. And maybe that's just me, because I have 10 fingers, and Jean-Michel Jarre says you have 10 fingers, but now you only use one of them when you're clicking on that damn mouse. You're not, moving around, twiddling knobs. And yes, I understand that it's a fortunate area to be in if you can afford said knobs, or afford said space to actually have the knobs. Here's Seth. Welcome, Seth. You can hear me okay? Hey, Seth, can you hear me? All right, Seth can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Excellent. But there's something about that process that has been lost because everything is now so digital and so easy. And and this is the other really interesting thing as well, is that there is this constant time crush where and by the way, Seth, we're streaming, just FYI, and it's being recorded and everything. There's this constant time crush where you have to get it out, and you have to do this, and you have to create content so people can just swipe past it. And I want to throw it out to everyone else, is that how do you? I want to know your thoughts on this. I want to get into the juice of creating even when sometimes you don't have what you want or need. Process. Go.
Well, sometimes not having what you want or need is the most creative place that you can be. Like, you have to engineer your own solution for something and find a workaround. And some of the coolest, I'm going to say this, some of the coolest shit I've ever made has come from that kind of thing, because then you're in a space there where, like, you can't do it right, so you have to do it your way. So you create an entirely different way to do it, and you have created something entirely unique.
Yeah. And Seth, I'd love to hear from you, because you're a young guy, and you have there is analog paths in your past. But I'll also say that if you actually create, I don't know what I'm saying. I guess I'm just really always trying to find that place where I will allow myself the joy of, I'm going to record stuff with a microphone now on the Emacs. I'm not even going to go through the door. I'm going to do this old school, because there's no normalizing on the Emacs. You just have to guess. I think there is on later software, but I don't have that. So if you turn it up too much, it distorts. And sometimes that distortion is bloody great. And ironically, everything's so retro now, you just want to sound like early 90s. And that's the sound of a crappy sample on an Emacs. I don't know, I'm bitching right now. Adam, it's over to you.
I was thinking, as you're saying this about, the one click kind of, it's not 10 fingers anymore, it's one. The tape machine was never 10 fingers, and if you treat the laptop like your tape machine, you can, like what you do, man, it's like, it's computer music. Like, we're all producing on computer, it's all computer music, but then you have these incredible wall of synthesizers that you're recording. You're just using the computer as a tape machine then. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
sure, you can. I mean, I did all the instrumentalization, all the instruments on my album by clicking with a mouse, because I do not play the piano. So that was how I was able to write my record, right? Like, I can hear it in my head, but I can't make it go from my head to my hands, and that has always been a problem. And it's even worse when I have this nerve pinch thing. But like, like I never was able to, play guitar. I don't have the articulation in my hands to speed or whatever. It's taken me years to get up enough speed, for scratching and stuff. It's much less the, fucking piano is hard, guy. So
Yeah.
like, yeah. Well, and you know, it's one of those things. If you don't learn it pretty young, it's way harder to learn as an adult, you know. You know, so rhythm is what I learned young, you know, and so click 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 on my mouse was how I made all the music on my album, right? Um so it's one of those things, like, because that process is available to me, I can make music now.
For sure. I'll just quickly jump in, and Seth, if you want to jump in, just put your hand up so I can see you, and then I'll throw it over to you. Adam, I'm sorry. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that? Unless anybody else wants to jump in there, I will say that the inability, if you don't know anything about music, you can use that as a strength. And if you're bad at an instrument, you can use that as a strength. And, you can, if you don't know what your fingers are doing, stick to the black notes, because it's minor pentatonic and it all sounds good. And I know I say this all the time, every great song ever written was written on the black notes. And I remember I attended a lecture once with a guy named Ivor Davies from a band called Ice House. And he was saying he's a remarkably, terrifyingly good oboe player. He's like concert level oboe. There you go. That's not really something you want to brag about as a rock pig. I play a mean oboe. What's your axe? Oboe. Fuck off. Anyway, and he's an awful keyboard player. And so he writes everything on keyboards because he's never really sure what he's doing, although he does now. But back in the 80s, his area of strength was oboe, and he knew musicology and he knew theory. But I'm not sure what my fingers are doing right now. I'll
Right.
So you can use that as your advantage. I saw a hand. Seth, go.
Sure, I'll jump in for a minute. I came in a little late, so I might not understand exactly what the topic is, but it sounds like you're talking about hacking around creative limitations
Sure.
that sort of develop over time. So I took piano lessons from the age of 6 until, I don't know, 16 or something like that. And I remember being in high school and realizing like the only thing I could do was read music. I couldn't like create anything. I couldn't come up with anything that was interesting. It was always just some sort of rehash of whatever I had been practicing or nothing at all. And that's when I started taking guitar lessons, because I needed something that would hack around that sort of roadblock. So like I had technical proficiency, but it was really limited in creativity, and that did sort of end up breaking things open for me a little bit. And then I got into synths later, and that changed things even more because, you'd split things up. Like, okay, I'm doing a bass line now, and I'm thinking about just one, monophonic thing instead of all 10 fingers. But like since that time, I've been doing nothing but trying to think of different hacks, like to get more and more experimental and more interesting. Like, one second. So like I kickstarted this thing, which is called the Instrument One by Artiphone. And honestly, I don't really love it, but as it's like a MIDI input device. The idea being that like I can do something weird on here that doesn't feel normal, that will come up with something that might be new, that's different from what I would be able to do just with my on my keyboard that I'm used to doing. And I have a lot of different like MIDI devices and stuff, and that's kind of the thing I'm interested in about with getting the analog synth, is that be generating all these control voltages that now can become MIDI, and then that MIDI can then be used for just about anything. And, you know, especially getting like polyrhythms or getting, you know, really weird or interesting chord progressions. So, you know, the story that always comes to my mind about like trying to hack around that stuff is Schumann, the composer, who he hated, like he was just like felt so constrained by his 10 fingers. So he actually like tied some of his fingers back to his wrist so he wouldn't use them and force himself to
That's
play in
wild.
a different way. Yeah, and he actually damaged his hands and couldn't play the piano anymore. But um you know, the point of the story is that this is an old problem, right? Like even the greats would find themselves in a rut, and like how do we work around that? What can I do differently that just, you know, forces you to access that other side of your brain? um and I don't know, you know, I don't know if there's any answer to it. And going, the part that you said right when I jumped in was that, like, you know, you're on us, and you specifically, Carl, you're on a cycle where you've got to produce something constantly. Like it's your job. Like you wake up in the morning, you're like, I have to do something new. You know, for me, it's like I gotta, you know, I got a bug up my butt. Let me see how this thing works. That didn't work. I don't care. You know, I don't worry about it too much. And I can definitely feel that stress. And I think you do it really well,
Thank
actually.
you.
I think, yeah, I mean, I'm amazed. Part of the reason I am your patron is that to me, you're what I would call the real deal. Like, you know, like
Thank
you,
you.
yeah, no, you've got, you're the full package. But that includes the work ethic, and that includes the drive and the ambition. That said, man, in today, in the modern time, like, I don't know how you do it, because like unfortunately music and art is worth almost nothing. Like it just, you know, like you said, it's just a swipe on a screen, you know. um Another kid, this guy I used to mentor at a youth program, I think I've sent you some stuff, Carl. He's
Yeah, yeah,
into
the
like
hip hop artist. He's great.
yeah, he's a Christian rapper, which is sort of strange but like very cool. He did a he did a remix of this WandaVision song. I haven't watched WandaVision, but I guess there's a person named Agatha, and they have like this theme song for a TV show. I don't know. He remixed it, and it went viral, and he got, you know, I don't know, a million views or something like that, and new followers and new fans. And he's having a hell of a time keeping anybody interested in it, right? Because they like, oh, that's cute. You did this thing that's hip and it's, you know, it's hot and you got this thing. But like, you know, when people like, you know, people might get turned off by his being a Christian, I don't know, or just not into the other stuff he does. And it's really hard to parlay that into this
Yeah.
thing we'll call a career. You know, and I don't know. I mean, but at the same time, it's like, man, something hit. Like I've never had anything hit like that. Like, you know, good for him. But you know, it's really hard to it's really hard to counsel somebody on that when it's like, you know, I don't know the world we live in. Like to everybody who listened to your song, it's just this cheap cutesy thing. To you, it's something you spent hours doing and put a lot of attention into and perfected. And you know, how do you mix those things together? I really don't, I'm not sure. I sort of feel like Patreon is a part of the answer. That like where we might be going is bespoke media. Like that's actually what is going to end up happening is you know, things are going to go underground again, but like really deeply underground. And yeah, but I don't know. I think about it a lot, but I certainly don't have an answer. So I'll swing it over to the next commentator.
Thank you. Adam, floor's yours. Thank you, Seth. That
Yeah,
was great.
I think you're absolutely right about that. I think that's a really strong concept too. I do think that more and more, like as you say, publicly to the masses, so to speak, art and music are ubiquitous. Like, it's just background noise. Like, you go to the mall and you hear 50 different songs in 4 minutes, I think you're right that patronage is becoming more and more of the new medium model, so to speak. A couple of things that I wanted to hit back on, though. First of all, Carl, when you were talking about Ice House, are we talking about like, baby, what can I do? Electric Blue Ice House? Because if so, I am gushing like a fanboy.
That's them. He did a podcast recently that was really, really good.
That song, Electric Blue, fucking, oh my God. I love that song. Anyway, the other
Can I ask
thing
you
that
really quickly? No, I'm not. I want you to finish. I'm not going to interrupt you, Adam. Keep going.
Well, the other thing that I was going to jump on was the black key composition idea there. One of the, I can't remember which songwriter it was. It was one of the Tin Pan Alley musical writer guys. He couldn't play piano either, and he would modulate everything to the black keys. Like, so he would write everything on the black keys and then be like, yeah, but I want it to be in C instead. You know
I think that was Joplin.
Yeah, that makes sense. It could have been Joplin, like that. Yeah, but I don't think that's how do I say this? I think that's a fairly common songwriting trick. Using the black keys and modulating. And yeah, I think that covers what I was thinking. You had a question.
Did somebody else, or am I jumping in? Okay, I want to ask, and it sounds like it's off topic. It probably is, but it sort of isn't. Have you ever heard Primitive Man by Icehouse, Great Southern Land? Right. Because it was really interesting how he was talking about Will is back in. Thank you, Will. It's really interesting in this interview. He was talking about, welcome, Will. He was talking about the marketing. Always good to see your cat. He was talking about the marketing difficulties of America and how the whole thing was different. And that album, which had Electric Blue and Crazy on it.
Hey, little girl.
Yeah, Hey, Little Girl was on... that was on another one that was way earlier. I think that was either Primitive Man or something. Bloody awesome. Whole bunch of Prophet 5, whole bunch of TR-808, whole bunch of Lindrum. Great story around the Lindrum. Apparently, he actually got a loan of the Lindrum from Roger Lynn himself, who turned up at the door to give him a loan of a Lindrum, which is pretty fucking good. Anyway, geeking out for a minute there. But it was really interesting listening to how the follow. Oh, thank you. I didn't know that Will was a cat. Anyway, that following up that train of thought, that the follow-up album to Electric Blue, or I hope I've got this wrong, was all about songs that were inspired by events in Australia. Although when you listen to the album, you didn't know that. But it was in the press release, and it's what he told the record label. And the record label went, oh, we don't want to touch that because it's got to be about America. And if it's not about America, yes. Or we don't want to know about it. But they were the good old days. And thus, Icehouse went into fucking who the fuck are they? Anyway, yeah, we don't really have that problem anymore, luckily, because of the scene that we are involved in, which is actually a very supportive network of human beings. Belching, is that in this scene, people are mostly open to new music, and they are, mostly open to artists that are creating something new. And most bands really, honestly, only have 3 albums in them. Or they have many more than that, but the audience will only support 3 albums. And I'm about to release number 10. Well, I'm working on 10. I've released 9. And there are quite a few bands in our scene that are like that because the scene itself is open. And people stop buying music after a certain age unless they're in this audience, because this audience keeps watching clubs, going to clubs. There was an article recently that was talking about that goth is the fountain of youth. I hate the word goth, but goth was the fountain of youth because people in this audience are not hindered by the concept of, oh my God, I'm mid-50s and I can't go to clubs anymore. If you go to a goth club, it's full of people in their mid-50s and all the way to the 18-year-olds who have snuck in. And that's a fucking good thing about this scene, and that won't change. It won't change. There's something about this community, besides the fact that none of us like being called goths, that all of us, that's where we're at. Okay, I'm going to throw it. Huh?
I'm a goth. I am happy to be titled goth.
I'm not.
Goth. You're a goth too, Carl.
No, I'm not. Absolutely not.
Yes,
All of every item I own of clothing is very dark red. Like this, for example, is dark
That's
mauve.
not what it. That's not what it's about.
Is. It is.
No, it's the whole dark aesthetic.
It's not the dark aesthetic. You know, absolutely not. I was actually
I'm
listening.
a metalhead.
I'm not that either. I was listening to a Susie Sue lyric the other day, and I was reminded about how I'm not goth at all. And then I was listening to the Newman and a bit of Nick Cave, and I was going, no, I'm not goth at all. I digress. Randall, I see your blue hand up. Go. And then you can tell us how to actually put blue hands up, because none of us know.
Okay. Couple of things.
Go.
From the last few things, I guess. The whole age in the scene thing. Maybe it is the fountain of youth. Rock and roll keeps me young. I'm old now. Not really, but it's the whole 30's the new 20, but 40's the new 30, but if 30's the new 20, 40's
50's the new 20. Fuck you. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I'm saying 30's the new 20, and 40's the new 30, then 40's the new 20, and 50's the new 40, so 50's the new 20. So we're all just 20. Nobody changes. Like, what you're into is what you're into.
I'm turning 40/19 this year.
I'll be 40. But the other thing, because we were talking about cheating your way through the creative hacks and stuff. I suck at keyboards. I'm a guitar player. I made myself a cheat sheet. So if I play something on the keyboard, I know how to make it into guitar. And if I played something on guitar, I know how to make it into a keyboard thing. I just have, it's actually taped to my MIDI controller keyboard. There's a little chart of what note is on what fret, standard tuning, so I can figure out. And the other thing I really wanted to comment on was the amount of time somebody spends creating something versus the amount of time that the audience actually pays attention to it. So, as a visual artist, I've done paintings that have taken me, because if it's an oil painting, you have to wait. You can't just do it all at once. You get so much paint on the canvas, you have to let it cure before you can paint on top of it. So I've sold paintings to people that I worked on this painting for 2 months, right? They get the painting, look at it, go, oh my God, I love it. Hang it on the wall, look at it for a second, never pay attention to it again. It's background now. When people hear the song that you worked on for a month or 2 months or 3, they don't get all the build up to the song. They only hear 3.5 minutes. To them, it's just 3.5 minutes of whatever. And they might love it, but it's just 3.5 minutes to them. It's not 3.5 months. And I think in order to not let that crush you and put pressure on you, you just have to totally disconnect from the thing that you make. You have to not be the thing you create. You put yourself in it, but it's not you. This song is a song. It's not, I made it. Yeah, great. But you can't be too proud of the thing you created, because if you are, it's like I wish I could remember the name of the book. It's like the art of fear, or the fear of art, or whatever. But it's not even 100 pages, I don't think, but it was written by this artist, and it's all about how you're afraid to put out the thing you created because you put so much of yourself into it that if someone rejects your art, they reject you. But that's not what's happening, because chances are the people that don't pay attention to it, they're not even gonna bother. Like, if they don't like it, they're not gonna bother to tell you that they hate it. They don't think you're stupid. They think your song's stupid. Or if you do a piece of art and people don't appreciate it, it's not you they don't appreciate. They don't even know who you are. They just see this painting or whatever, and if it doesn't do it for them, it doesn't do it for them. And so that goes back to the whole creative pressure. You have a block and all of that stuff. Most of it comes from, this has got to be the best thing I ever did. If not, people are going to think I suck.
Thank
Maybe.
you.
I don't know.
No, that's great. What I want to do really quickly is I want to say, Dean, welcome. If you want to jump in, put your hand up. And
Okay.
if we could get into the habit of actually putting up the little blue hand in the thingo, that would be great, because it's helping me keep track. Seth, I think you're next, and then I'm going to throw it to Adam. Is it, you have to have your participants window up where you can click on, make your hand go up, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know what you meant at first. I thought you were just like, hey, wait.
Yeah, no. A hand
but I
up
put
is
it up
good.
now.
A blue hand's even better. And I'll say happy birthday. I'm actually 29 as well. Seth, the floor is yours. Go.
Yeah, I wanted to build on what Randall was just saying, because you know, I absolutely feel the you know, that you work on something really hard, and then you put it out in the world, and it's like, well, what even was that? And there's a lot of risk you take. But you know, I would say, you know, maybe the flip side of this, the flip side of the democratization of art, is that now we can have conversations. You know, so going back on this bespoke thing, you know, what I've been doing lately is I got all these guys that have been in bands with since we were 16, and they're still writing songs, but we just send them back and forth to each other. You know, like the remix I sent to you the other day, Carl. I was like, that's just my friend. I did it for him. He likes it. That's really all that matters to me. And, you know, frankly, I was doing it, listening to his lyrics and being like, man, this is really cool. I really enjoy like getting into his mind here, and you know, flipping this thing around a little bit and getting into it. And, you know, so to sort of go deeper into my idea of like bespoke art, you know, I mean, that's what we're doing here, is that, and I know you do it a lot too, Carl. You have a lot of people remix your songs. I think you're pretty liberal with that, which is great. I mean, obviously it creates content for you, but it also like builds bridges and has these sort of musical and artistic conversations. And that's like, I think that's where it's going to go in the future. You know, like top 100, like pop music, I don't know, whatever. It'll always be there. I don't think it ever meant anything to anybody on this chat. Um, and why should it? It's not deep or meaningful. Not like the things that we could do for each other, you know. And I think that is a direction we should push.
I love it. Hey, how you going, Tiger? By the way, I'm going to throw it to Adam. Dean, I saw your hand up, so if you want to jump in after Adam, please put up your little blue hand. And Tanner, welcome. The way we're playing it now is if you want to throw in, put your hand up, or even better, put up your little blue hand in the participants, so we can like have a really non-interrupty vibe. Because I interrupt, as I just had. Adam, the floor is yours.
On the top 40 thing, man, the only time that the top 40 stuff was really relevant to me was when I was a child, and the only time that it's really relevant to me now is if I'm DJing for children. So I kind of feel like the top 40 charts are like for kids, kind of, if that makes sense. But that's, I mean, that's not like saying that, you know, kids can't understand or comprehend good music, because they can. I'm just saying that Top 40 doesn't cater to those kids. And actually that brings me to the next thing, which is, you know, we were saying about, you know, it takes X amount of many grueling hours, months, years, ages to create something beautiful and meaningful to the artist. And then, you know, people consume it in moments, like, you know, as quick as a sugar bar. And, you know, I was thinking on that while y'all were talking, and I just don't think that, I don't think that people hear it at all. Like, I think that expecting anybody to hear what you have actually done in your music, in your album, whatever it is, to actually hear what you have done, nobody will ever actually hear it. Like, every once in a while, it's like really lovely every once in a while to get that comment where somebody's like, you know, that little part where you do this thing right there, I love that, right? But I don't think most people hear the subtleties at all. Like, you have to be trained to hear the subtleties. I was very lucky. I had a mentor when I was in my teens who was an opera singer, and that's, I ended up doing stage work and learning stagecraft by interning with the opera company. And he was like, you know, he was basically like, you know, I was into like rock and roll and Kiss and Guns N' Roses kind of shit, and he was like, no, sit down and listen, right? And he's the one that taught me to separate the sounds in my mind and to hear them, you know, individually and collectively, and to appreciate the subtleties of timbre and tone and tension, that make up the subtleties of my music now, that I expect that nobody hears. I just assume that nobody's going to hear it. Like, you know, you're right about letting the ego go on. Like, you know, you're right. Like, if somebody doesn't like your music, they don't like you. Sure, that's all true. We all feel that. The simple fact is that nobody's ever going to hear what you hear in it. Nobody's ever going to see what you see in that painting. You know, it's serious. Like, to really understand paintings, like, I've been an artist my whole life. I grew up with artists. My parents met in fucking art school, and dragged me around to museums. I've been to so many fucking, I've been to more museums probably than I've been to nightclubs, and I've been to hundreds of nightclubs. And it it literally took me a really great mushroom trip and sitting around with paint to really understand painting. Because, like, um you know, like, really getting in and, like, no, seriously, like, really getting in and playing with the paint and destroying the paint and moving the paint around, and big glops of paint and little glops of paint, made me, like, appreciate a licked canvas in a way that I had never understood before, or the way that, like, Van Gogh uses his textures and the thickness of his paint and the craziness of it. And then, so it's like, by going that further step deeper and learning to understand the art that you're appreciating, not necessarily to create it, but learning to understand the art that you're appreciating, makes the experience so much greater. I wouldn't love music the way I do if I hadn't learned to hear.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Seth. There's a whole bunch of amazingness, and Randall in that. That was great. Firstly, Adam, I just want to say, when you said took mushrooms and played with paint, few people started smiling, and I'll leave that right there. Yeah, no, I really want to have a conversation. We'll do a non-stream version, and we'll talk about that sometimes. Secondly, I angst over the volume level of hi-hats. I angst over the volume level of my voice, and I angst over the amount of side chaining of my voice to the rest of the mix. I have never had someone come up to me and say, you know, man, those hi-hats are too loud, or good job on the volume of those hi-hats, or, you know, I think your vocal need to be side chained against the music a little bit more. Never. And I have spoken to and got thoughts from extremely good mixers and like audio mixers in rock and roll, etc. No one has ever said that to me. And I believe the reason is because people will listen to a song and go, this is the song. What's in all? This is the song. And even people who are trained, as you said, Adam, who are trained to be able to pick that stuff, never. I've heard some people's music and I've heard it and I go, oh, I reckon those vocals are too loud and I think it needs to be side changed into the thing more because that's my fucking angst. I've listened to people's music and going, I don't like the synthesizers. But the thing about it, even in my brain, it's Bahrain, this is the song. This song is now this identity. And that identity is holistic unto itself. This is the song. And I want to talk about, Adam, I see your hand up, and we can throw to you and then bend away. I don't even know if that's English. I don't care. I want to talk about the importance of detail because I know that all of us, and by the way, Seth, I love your T-shirt. If I knew you were wearing a Devo T-shirt, I would have worn mine too. Actually, in the I'm going to get onto the details really shortly. And remind me, because I'm way off topic now, I got the repress of Freedom of Choice, which turned 40 last May. Freedom of fucking Choice. One of the greatest albums ever written. My God, that's got Whip It on it, right? And all of those other incredible tracks. Talk about totally going somewhere else in your brain. They did that. No one was doing that album. No one was using, this is 1980. No one was using synthesizers like that. No one was merging punk, rock, pop, and synthesizers. It was, who produced it? Was it Eno or someone? Because I know Bowie discovered them. Oh no, Iggy Pop discovered it. Anyway, I digress. I got the repress of it, and in it, it had the original sleeve that was selling their merch. And it was covered in, Judy Now for the Future, buy your, get the T-shirt, get the CD, get the Devo hat, get the X-ray sunglasses. And I just went, my God. This, and they still had the Right to Devo's fan club on it as well. They copied it, scanned it, and repressed it as it was in 1980. And it was like, my God, this makes me feel like a kid. I want to talk about detail, but Adam, I've seen your hand up. So if you don't want to talk about how important detail is, because this is something I struggle with all the time, the amount of detail I put into my fucking music, no one hears it. But I understand that if I didn't put the detail into it, people would go, that's not Angel Spit anymore, or that's not blah. If you don't work on it, people are going to hear it. That's what I think. If you don't really angst over the level of the volume of the vocals or the hi-hats or the compression or the bass sound or all this shit, they will hear it. And, it doesn't take, it takes a small amount of work. Thanks, Dean, I see your hand. It doesn't take a lot of amount of work to get it to 70% amazing. People are going to hear that. But when you get to 80%, there's a lot of work. It might have taken you 20 hours to get to 70. It's going to take another 20 to get to 80, and it's going to take 40 to get to 90. There's a whole lot of work involved in that, but people aren't going to hear the difference. You will. I'm talking in circles. Adam, I see your hand. Dean, put your hand back up. God damn it. Adam, go. Floor's yours.
Hey, first of all, I'm going to apologize a little bit. Our internet connection just got really glitchy. The wind picked up here fiercely, and so I think it's slapping the wires around out there. Shit. I apologize because I got a bit distracted there and lost my train of thought. So I'm going to back out. And if I can pick up that train of thought again, I will raise my hand again. I apologize.
I'm sorry if I knocked you off. Dean, your hand is up. Go.
Hi. The thing is, with your angst about your hi-hats or the level of detail, and how about you think about your own work and other people reacting is something I learned over the years with DJing. And the people don't think about that. even if you stand on the stage with synthesizers and stuff and things, the people don't think about that. They like it or they don't like it. The kind of detail you have in your songs and in your structures, especially with Crunkhouse, was a old masterpiece. I listened a week ago again, and I thought about that and thought, okay, that's a own trademark, your sound, and I think that's the point. You don't have to think about too much. Oh, is this too loud or not? You can really do in your own position things that's okay. So I hope this makes sense, because you don't make normal music in terms like chart stuff or something. So the people won't notice it anyway. That's the good thing when you think about the clinic or stuff like House of Rafna. I don't know if anybody knows that bands. They are sounding really, really different from what is so popular today. I think that that's a good thing to have, own trademark in leveling.
Awesome. Thank you, Dean, and thank you for your comment. I'm going to throw it to Julius.
I think it was Randall first.
Oh, thank you for being a gentleman. I'll throw it to Randall.
Okay. Detail. I guess it kind of came from what I was saying about, it's just they don't hear all the work. I don't know if I meant the detail stuff. The thing is, with the details are the last choices you make before you're finished. Those are musically, I guess, that's your brushstroke. Like it's your stroke lengths. It's the way you move your brush with the music or whatever. So it becomes the fingerprint. Those little tiny choices you make at the end are the identity of your sound. Like that's where the style is. It's what the identity is. Because you can take the same chord progression that everybody uses and okay, put it on a 4 on the floor, take this same chord progression, give it to keep the same tempo, same everything, give 2 different artists this same constraint. You're going to get entirely different things when it comes to the end because it's the edits that are going to be different. And that's where I get held up at the end, because it's always like, oh, this transition doesn't work. I should put a riser here. Or no, maybe the riser doesn't work. Maybe it should fall. Or maybe this should fall and this should rise and it should come apart. Or pull everything together or whatever. And it's those little decisions, the part you chop up versus the part that you maybe just put a long reverb tail on. Those little final tweaks. And the thing is, yeah, nobody hears it because they don't realize that that's what they're hearing. But that's what changes the impact. That's what makes it do what it does. And just because they don't know to look, they don't know that that's what it is, doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So you get that cool build up to this thing, and then you smash somebody in the face with this part of the song, and it's like, wow, so much impact. They don't know why necessarily, but it's there. If it wasn't, then it wouldn't be a special experience. Like, I got into music. I was started out a metalhead and a guitar player because I wanted to play guitar like Tony Iommi, because Black Sabbath did something that had an impact, and I wanted to figure out how. So I learned all these Black Sabbath songs. So everything I play is in blues scale and minor pentatonic. But but I found out it's not the notes at all. It's got nothing to do with the notes. It's got nothing to do with the song. It's all in the way that those notes are played. It's the phrasings. It's those little edits. It's those little final details. It's whether or not the volume of the toms build when it goes into this thing, or if they stay the same volume, or if it's a volume rise or it's a filter sweep. Those are similar things, but they totally change the way everything feels. If that makes sense. The listener will know the difference, but they don't know that that's what the difference is, if that makes sense.
For sure. Randall, can I just really quickly, I see hands up, Julius and Adam, just really quickly, I hope I'm not talking out of terms here, but you face an issue that a lot of us face, and that is being overcritical, and being so overcritical that you second guess your questions and everything else. And all of us here, I know, have that problem. And you've got to be really careful of that. That, remember, if the joke was funny the first time you heard it, after you've heard that joke and worked on that joke 100 times, it's not funny. But as soon as you stand in front of somebody and say that joke, it will be funny.
Yeah, it's the first time they heard it.
You got it. And you've got to keep that in mind, you know, when you're making your music. All of us really need to. Is it all right if I throw it to Julius?
Go for it.
Julius, the floor is yours. Go.
Hello. Fun fact, literally angst about every single note. That's just how stupid and perfectionist I am. And especially back when I was more into writing, it was a hellish trip, you can say, because I literally angsted about every single sentence, every single word I wrote. And when I got back into music last year, I don't know how I did it. It probably was because it was too long of a time living in this hell, like wanting to create, but holding myself back while trying to do it. I somehow managed to not take myself too serious anymore when I got back into music, and just throw things out, even though I know that they're not perfect, and just say fuck it. And surprisingly, even when I started to accept that in my mind the things I throw out are shit and not perfect, people came to me and told me, wow, I like what you do. And this was the moment where it clicked. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. I see your hand, Adam, and then Seth. Now, young Mr. Dean has been throwing into the comments, thank you, Dean, that app to help people write so they can all write in tandem. And although we'll touch on that in a minute, I will say that if you are in a rut and you want to do something different, write with someone else. And I'm currently doing 2 sessions with 2 other projects where I'm writing over Zoom. And it's great. And I haven't written with someone in a million years. Like I'm writing with Miss Ballistic, and the 3 of us sit down, kick out lyrics, kick out melodies, kick out all of that stuff. And what's really interesting is that when the 3 of us are writing together, there's all of this stuff that normally my brain goes, It doesn't do that, because it's focused on how these lyrics and melodies and fundamental structures and important things about the music come together. And I'm not angsting over hi-hats or side chaining and all that other crap that I was going on about before. So if you're in a rut, you know, there's a whole bunch of people here who would love to write with you, and Dean's just thrown that link down to help as a writing tool. And there's also the Discord on there as well. And I know that there are so many people aching to write with other people on that Discord. I'm going to shut up now and throw it to Adam.
So what's really cool is when Randall was talking, he looped it back around in a way that reminded me of what I forgot when you were talking before, Carl, which was the details making the whole. Like, so again, you know, going back to the listener not hearing all those little details, um, it's all those details make the entire picture. All of those little decisions make the entire picture. That is why we obsess over them as creators, right? That's why we have the angst over every single note, Julius, right? Is because all of those details, like um the perfectionism and the obsession that we put into it, right, is or how should I say, the final project depends on that perfectionism. Like your level of if you don't have enough perfectionism, the final result is mud, right? Like if you don't obsess about it enough, you're just not happy with it. If you as the artist aren't happy with the completed piece, how could you expect the listener to take in that whole piece as one thing and be happy with it, right? And that's the obsession over details. The other thing that I wanted to mention is you know, letting it go, right? And I think that is that is an important stage in art, but you know, it's a stage in your art is to let it go. One of the things that caused Newton a tremendous amount of grief was that he sat on the calculus for so long that Leibniz snuck in and did it better than him. And so he had a rivalry for the rest of his life and did nothing but stress and fight with this other fucking mathematician. He waited 30 years to tell people about gravity, man, what he had figured out about gravity. And the only reason that he really did that was so that he could stick it in this other scientist's face.
Hmm.
Right? Like if you sit on your creation, nobody will have the chance to experience it. Nobody will have the chance to benefit from it. Nobody will have the opportunity to even try to listen to it. And so that's when you have to let it go. What you have to, you know, there is the point at which you have to let it go and say, this is the best that I can do right now with this thing, and let it go. You know, that's the story I was telling a couple of weeks ago about the first grade art teacher or whatever, who was like, no, I just know when to take it away.
Yeah.
I think the other thing that I was going to say about co-writing and trying to break the writer's block is that writing for somebody else's voice and writing for somebody else's style and experimenting with a different form because somebody else is working in that form is a really great idea. I think it's a good idea to mess with different forms. Like, you know, it helps you to settle. Like if you experiment with different forms, then it helps you to settle into the, how I say it, the idea of a cohesive sound for any given project, right? If you know, if you don't evolve the sound of any given project, right, you're not going to get a 10 album career out of it. You maintain the consistencies, that obsession, that attention to detail, that quality level, you improve on it as you go. um and um and you experiment with the how do I say this, you experiment with the new stuff to add something to that core, to add something to that base. Done. Moving on.
Thank you. That's bloody great. This is really helpful. Seth, I'm going to throw it to you, and I'm going to excuse myself for 30 seconds because I have to deal with something. I'll be back. But Seth, go. And if there's a lull before I get back, then I don't know. Keep going with the amazingness.
Just keep talking.
Keep talking.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. And I think Carl kind of touched on this, but something that's really interesting to me is I wonder how many people in this chat, or even that we know, started out or play in bands. I get the impression that everybody's kind of an individual artist. And maybe that's not true, but I think it's a lot more common today than it was 30 years ago. And I think that has a pretty big impact, right? And I used to hate jamming. I was like, ugh, jamming, great. We're gonna just do 1-4-5 over and over again for 4 hours. This sucks. And then, you know, years later, I kind of started playing with some of my friends again. I'm like, actually, this is really great, and I really needed this. And it's really breaking things up a little bit, like, you know, like an icebreaker ship or something. And you know, and I get this, you know, like a lot of people seem to kind of, you know, you start out with your laptop and you basically spend all your time in a studio mind, right? Like that's why we're talking about focusing on details so much, is because everybody's in their studio working on the screen, getting everything perfect. And that's great. When you're in the studio, you got to be, you know, you got to be attention detail focused. But like, you know, I just feel like there was a big cost paid by maybe people not being in bands anymore, and not, you know, and even in the goth scene, like that was all bands back in the day. It was everybody showed up with whatever synthesizer they could lay their hands on, and you know, um, so you know, I would say that. And then the other thing I would say about, you know, being like hyper focused on perfecting everything is, in my opinion, you can't be too precious about everything that you do. A lot of things you're going to start, you're just going to put them away in the garbage. Like it's just not, but they're all part of the process to get you where you're going. You know, my friends, and I didn't realize this until way too late in the game, but I had friends that were signed to Arista and they did a major label album. And they're like, yeah, the album's going to have 10 songs, but we went in the studio and recorded 20. And I was like, holy crap, you did 20 songs? And like, yeah, 10 of them the world won't ever hear. But it's because you can't just go in there with your 10 songs and hope that every one of those turns out perfectly. Some of them are just not gonna get released, or they're B-sides or whatever. You share it with your friend, because you know, if you try to make every single thing that you do, that you begin, take it all the way to completion, you're going to get really frustrated, because just not everything is meant to be that way. I feel like I had something else to say on that, but you know, those were my main points.
Thank you, Seth.
I'll shut up.
Now I think Randall's next. Can I just really quickly jump in? The Eurythmics had that mindset where they would go in with 10 tracks and make them work. And I've always wondered whether that's a good idea or not, because it's been mine as well. I can't waste a track. I can't do that. But, you know, in so many ways, I sometimes wonder if I just threw this fucking track away and spent my energy on something that's better, you know, maybe that is a wiser thing to do. So thanks for that, because it's always challenging me. I'm going to throw this to Randall. Go.
Okay. All right. The starting out the band thing. I was a guitarist in a heavy metal band, and I realized not too long ago that everything I do now is so overly complicated because it's just me. I can't get out of my own way like I could get out of someone else's. Like, as a guitarist, I played rhythm guitar. So if I couldn't step all over our bass player, I couldn't step all over our lead guitarist when he went into a solo, I just had to back up. I couldn't be all over the singer. I had to back out of the way. But now it's just me. And so I want you to hear my guitars, because I like my guitar playing. But I want you to hear my synth work too, because it's cool. But I need you to hear my drum loop. So I end up with all these things piled up on each other, and then you have to go make the decision of what to cut out. But even when I jam with other people, I'm not in their way. I know I have to move out of their way. I can't move out of my own. if that makes sense. So
Thank you, Randall. I'll just be really quick because I see hands up and I'm just fucking interrupting because I'm a bastard.
no, you're good. All done.
One thing I would suggest doing is that if you have a riff that is a very guitar-orientated riff, the guitar speaks the first part of that riff and the synths respond. Because synth and guitar both are dominating this one frequency set. And if you have them on top of each other, you lose the character of them and you have this very bad compromise because both of them want to yell at the top of their lungs. So, like, if the riff is ba-dum-ba, ga-da-da-dum-ga, ga-dum-ga, ga-dum-ga-ga, the guitars might go ba-dum-ba, the synths might go ba-da-ba-dum-ba, the guitars ba-dum-ba, the synths ba-dum-ba-ba, like that. So there's this talking. It might not be that rapid, but the guitars call, the synths answer, or it's the other way around. Just a thought.
Right.
Because that's something many electronic musicians, layers, he says, are working on. And Adam, I'm going to throw it to you, then it's over to Dean, unless I got this wrong.
I liked your little riff there, man. That sounded like some good horns.
Yeah, well, that's what, imagine Muppets
horns,
singing
man.
it.
Like,
Ba-da-ba,
get the two horn
ba-da-ba-da-ba.
sections.
Yeah.
Get the horn sections bouncing off each other.
Yeah.
So on the continuing on the subjects of bands and band in a boxing, I played in rock bands 30 years ago, and I played the drums, and I waited for 30 fucking years for the technology to get good enough that I didn't have to rely on other fucking flaky ass musicians who always wanted to put their dick stamp on everything I was trying to do. And so I think there's something to be said for both sides of that, in that, like, the technology that we had 30 years ago is very different from all the technology that we have today is built on that technology. Having the analog abilities is certainly helpful in the digital age. Like, you get it in a way that somebody who's never been in that situation doesn't get it. Does that make sense? Like, if you've never been in a band, you don't know what it's like to be in a band. If you've never worked with a very professional band working in a very professional recording studio, you don't know what it's like to work in that situation. And if you've never worked in that situation, it's hard to bring that into your production, if that makes sense. Like, if you've been in that grueling, and it's grueling, if you've never been in that situation, it's one of those cutting your teeth experiences. Recording in a professional recording studio with a band hurts. It is painful. It is fucking expensive. And if you think you're banging your head on home-based production, go try to do it when you have an engineer and a producer, and you're spending hundreds of dollars an hour for people to argue over 2 seconds of tape.
Yeah.
Yeah, and can I just throw in? I think, the issue is that people don't have the choice. Like, they don't have the ability. Like, you and I were in bands, so we can see all the problems with being in a band. But if you've never been in a band, if you've never played with other musicians before, you don't even have the ability to choose not to do that because you just haven't done it. And there's so much that you learn, like how to groove and play ahead and behind, all that kind of stuff.
Big part. No, that's exactly where I'm going with that, brother. It's impossible to bring experience to something that you don't have. It's like this is why, like, most great artists mature over their career and they produce the better stuff later. Like, what the hell are you going to write about when you're 12? You haven't had any experiences to be a great novelist. You haven't experienced society. You don't have a commentary on it. It hasn't fucked you up enough yet.
Yeah.
You don't have enough scars. You can't bring experience to art that you don't have.
You can talk about teenage angst. Sorry, that's a problem young between young and old people. I don't think young musicians have nothing to talk about.
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you can't bring experience that you don't have into a project. Like, actually, to be honest with you, this is the funny thing, Dean, is that like my album, The Skeleton Closet, is all like my teen angst songs, because those are the songs that bounced around in my head for 30 years that I had to wait for the technology and for my own abilities to catch up to, so that I could do it all myself without a fucking band getting in the way.
That's great.
But like, but that's the thing, is like, well, that's why I said like a 12-year-old is not going to be a great novelist. A 12-year-old could be, well, actually a 12-year-old could write a great fantasy novel for sure, but is not going to write, you know, a Kurt Vonnegut level social commentary.
Thank you, Adam. Excellent points. Dean, the floor is yours.
Yeah, the point is sitting about alone with your own art is a really big problem for many people. I think I used to watch sometimes a producer for Skinny Puppy and Highwat. I don't know if anyone knows him. And he explains really good about making music for Skinny Puppy. So it's a really big team thing. So the band does the demos and stuff, and then the producers come and took the stuff and throw other things on it and mix it, and it goes back and forth. So I think this is something, even with an app like this, is to hand it off to someone. I don't know. Did you ever experience this? Send it off to a big record mixer and let it master, let it mix, let it produce. So it's a complete different way to make music than sitting in a small shed with other people in a band or on your own. So I think that's a really different kind of making music. Can help, can destroy very big things, I think.
That's great, man. Once again, thank you. I think that again, I really encourage you guys to pick a partner if you want, and throw it in the comments today, and make a time with someone to be their writing buddy or jamming buddy. Julius, I do see your hand, because like in this time right now, we need it, and in general, we really need it. And yeah, I have experience with that. My God, I'll just say really quickly, I really felt the angst about spending a ridiculous amount of money in a studio, having an argument with a drummer who was drunk and a guitar player who was stoned. And he'd always play so behind the beat when he got stoned. And he'd always play so in front of the beat when he got drunk. Fuck, he was a good drummer. This is Jekyll Switch. Jesus Christ, that guy was a good drummer. I always go, how would Adam play this line? Adam was the drummer, still in contact. He works on some Angel Spit stuff. And I had a lot of clashes with Matt, the guitarist. We just weren't on the same level, but what he brought was fantastic. And I'd always go, if I'm in a rut, what would Matt do here? He'd do something brilliant, totally off the page, and he'd make it work somehow. So yeah, I think, and I'm sorry, Julius, I'm biting into your time here, but I think it's incredibly important that you have a period of your life where you make music together in real time with another human being. Even if that person's in Australia or Germany or England or America, it doesn't matter. We have things like this and that app that you've kindly told us about, to work with someone in real time like a band does, because that form of communication and that form of group problem solving is disappearing. And the music you create with that person, I guarantee, will be probably better than anything you can do, as it is always for me. Humans, man, they have their purposes. I'm throwing this to Julius now, and then it's over to Adam. Go.
I do agree that the music might probably be better when you do it together with another person or several people. But getting something done, actually getting something done, is the other problem. I used to play in several bands, rock bands, like guitar, bass, drums, singer, and so on. And back when I was a teenager, like 10 to 15 years ago, it already was pretty difficult to find people who are actually serious about forming a band and sticking together and getting something done. It didn't work out. None of those projects worked out for me. And I must say, I'm very, very thankful for the opportunities we have today, like being a band on my own. And that's why I am the most productive I've ever been. Yeah.
Awesome. Was there anything else you wanted to add, or? All right, cool, man. Thank you. That was great. Adam, spin your web of intrigue upon me.
Okay, well, where should I start? Should I start with Julius or should I start with Dean? Actually, I'll start with Dean. So you were talking about Skinny Puppy's production and the process of going through demoing and then working with a producer to refine the songwriting and working with the producers and engineer to add more layers, right? So one of the things that I would strongly suggest to anyone getting into production, because I mean, this is kind of a funny thing. I was thinking this when I think it was Randall was talking, that we've been talking a lot about kind of like bands. Actually, I think it was when Larson was talking. When we've been talking about like bands and production, like they're kind of the same thing because they're kind of the same thing now. Like if you're a musician, like I think maybe we're operating kind of on a higher level in this group, but like we're producers as well as performer, musician, songwriter, whatever it is for the most part. So what I would suggest is to anyone to go and listen to the demos that Trent Reznor did before Pretty Hate Machine, the pre-Pretty Hate Machine demos. Because listening to the difference is fucking awesome. And what Flood did with the layering, the production, the sampling, the even scratching, right? Yeah, took it into a whole new world. And now the thing about that that's really interesting, of course, is that he used so much hip hop production style on that record, and then that record made it to the top 40. It was like the production that made that a viable pop record. Dina, do you want to pop in?
Can I just really quickly jump in super fast? Colin, I see your hand, Dean. I just want to say to everyone in the Twitch chat right now, thank you. I'm reading the comments. They're fantastic. So please, once again, thank you for joining us on Twitch. And now, here's Dean.
The thing is, I have a good other part. I heard the demos of the first Evanescence album, and it was completely different in so many kinds. There were complete rainfalls, there were complete instrumentals, and years after that I got this album, and it was great. It was far more engaging and immersive. And years after that, I lost the original, and I bought the new album, the mastered album, the major album, and it was completely different. It was flat. It was that piece of you heard with Bring Me to Life, the thing with the rapper on it. It doesn't exist in the original. The rapper wasn't even there. That was the label that put it on. So they had to do this with the rapper so they get the deal. And this is a good point to show. Not every production and every bigger part of production can be good in an artist way, maybe, to bring an other part into this picture.
But isn't that exactly why we do this ourselves, Dean? Like, so the thing I was going to continue on with to speak to what Julius was saying, right? When I was in my late teens, I was playing drums in a very solid gloom glam act called Foxen, and we were opening for nationals on the local level, and we were doing interviews with the glossy magazines, and we had a development deal with CBS Records, and we were recording in Richard Cohen's studio, Sanctuary Studios in Verona, New Jersey. Beautiful studio. And it was as I said before, a hell of an experience. And now the thing is that whole thing fell apart because our country went to war. Our bass player was an active reservist and got called to duty overseas. And so within 7 days, we went from being on the edge of, we were about to get our pictures in all the major metal Hit Parader and Metal Edge and all those fucking things, right? And then the record labels gave us literally a week to replace a bass player we had been playing with for a couple of years, a strong writing member in our team, and then they locked up the tapes. And so having had that experience, and then going to, I went into the studio with my next band to do demoing because we wanted to work with a very good producer, and we never even finished those fucking demos because of the same problem that Carl had with stone guitar players. And he ended up in the singer who was married, and her husband didn't like that. But that's the problem with bands.
Oh
At
my
least they weren't-
God.
I had heroin people, so
I'd watched
take
an incredible
Alcoholics
band fall apart, dude. There was this band in the New York scene. They were like all of us just idolized these guys. They were fucking amazing, right? And they go to showcase for their label, right? And the singer was he had a microphone, and he was propped up against the thing, and he was mumbling into the mic, like he was singing the lyrics like under the red flag. And this is a band that was like that band, by the way, is in like Decline of the Western Civilization metal years. They're in that. And he was like
Can I? Drugs are bad. Bad drugs. Drugs bad. 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 Bad drugs. Drugs are bad. Bad drugs are bad. 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 Bad drugs. Sydney had a problem with speed.
No, they're super good, and that's the problem.
We're being streamed, darling. Sydney had it didn't. Well, I mean, like there was all that stuff, but it was speed. And apparently it was the best speed ever, I'm told. And I'll tell you, bands got shit done. They got shit done. It wasn't the best shit done, but they got a lot of shit done. And I'm told...
It was all 280 beats a minute.
I'm told, yes. That's why everything was so fast. I'm told that when they used to drink and do their speed, they would get extra stuff done. And I'm told, apparently, that the music they made when they were under the influence of said speed wasn't actually all that good. but people had a lot of Chubba Chubs. You had Chubba Chubs in the US? Chubba Chubs?
The lollipops.
Lollipops, yeah, Chubba Chubs.
Yeah, I fucking love those. They're like my favorite thing ever, and they were really hard to find for the longest time. And they had the ice cream flavors and all that.
Yeah, and if you walked into a club with one, they'd throw you out.
Really? No, I was
Yeah, because
Really?
you're on drugs, apparently. Because
yeah, 'cause
you're on that.
ravers.
What?
Those ravers.
Well, yeah, but
that was an ecstasy thing.
yeah, well, it was. Dean, I see your hand. Hold on. I just. Yeah, well, that was the. This actually comes into a really interesting question about, and we won't go down this rabbit hole right now, about the profound influence that ecstasy had on this scene. Because before ecstasy came along, which was in the late 90s, and it's funny that ecstasy really turned up in the early 90s, apparently. And before ecstasy, and that was in the raver scene, but because everyone didn't want to touch ecstasy because it was ravers and ravers. But when it finally made its way into the goth industrial scene, all of the dance music, instead of it being like how's your BBM and really good EBM and dark stuff, and everybody was listening to 9 Inch Nails ripping shit up, it became dance music. And it became happy dance music because everybody was on ecstasy, apparently.
Then came harsh.
Yeah. I just want to really quickly, because Jill, Dean, I see your hand. I did want to bring up the question of why bother getting signed these days, but I want to throw it to you first, Julius. I'm sorry, Dean, and fill me with your sex logic, baby. That means Dean, go. The floor is yours.
I thought, Julius, sorry. Yeah, drugs are bad. Drugs can do some good stuff for some people. I'm not into it, but something. The thing is, you told about the change of music with drugs. It all started in the 70s, 60s, I think. LSD is a good explanation, I think. And yeah, that's one kind of doing things. Oh God, I lost my.
That happens.
Lollipops. Genau. We had a good club with lollipops. Pops are all over the floor. That was really great. Everyone had a little red lollipops.
That would have been a good club. And the little baggies that you put the lollipops in. That was what the baggies were for.
I can remember how it started. You were on VGT some years ago. I think it's almost 10 years or more.
More than 10 years, 13.
This was so different for you.
What was?
13?
Yeah. It was 2008.
Years?
It was 2008.
Wow. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Now I live in this city. It's really, really great.
Love to. Yeah, if I could we'll talk about drugs for a second. It's interesting that when I was studying music at uni, we actually looked at the effects of drugs all the way back to the 20s and 30s. So there was a lot of Tin Pan Alley and a lot of bebop. Yeah. And, there was, my God, I've lost the word, when alcohol was illegal in the US. And there was a lot of heroin back then and a lot of cocaine back then. And when you listen to the bebop and the influence that each drug had on different forms of music, you can hear that someone who is very coked up right now would love this, music. Somebody who is very stoned right now would love the Grateful Dead. And all of the influence and the profound, like music has seen the great revolutions in music have usually coincided with a narcotic. And 1969, marijuana and acid. a bit of mushrooms, and we can all figure this out, guys. Everything's going to be okay. Hey, man, chill out. Whoa, it's all, and that is marijuana and acid to a T. What was going on in Berkeley with the synthesis thing during the mid-late 60s? Acid. What was going on the summer of love, the second summer of love in England? That was LSD, acid, and ecstasy. And these things, the prodigy happened because ecstasy was there. Ecstasy, people had the ideas for the music, then the drugs, then the music, then the drugs, and boom. But it's a fascinating thing to look into. And I used to work with DJs. So in the 90s, in the early 90s, ecstasy entered Australia at a place called Byron Bay, which is possibly the most beautiful place in Earth. And that's where rave entered as well, because what was happening is that the guys in England who were just so cranked out of their minds were chilling out. They got into gabba and hardcore. They got so fast and so manic they couldn't handle it anymore, so they went to Goa in India. And Goa became like Goa Electro. It became the thing because they were off their tits and they were trying to calm down. And then a bunch of those guys went to Australia, went to Byron Bay. And if you've ever been to Byron Bay, you will understand why, because it is beyond the most beautiful, perfect place on earth. Anyway, so as a result, when I was in university in 1990, this influx of European American DJs who had done the rounds and were baked turned up in Byron, and they were doing these things called bush doofs. Because a doof is doof, 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 doof. And they would go out into the bush, because there's a lot of bush, set up a PA, and they would dance for days. And I was getting involved with some of the DJs who were getting into this. And I remember, Adam, get the smile off your face, please. I remember these, and it was funny. In all honesty, I did not do any drugs because I was quite young at that stage and I didn't want to do drugs. I also took my Emacs, which is still here, and I took my Emacs to these raves, and I was sampling real time and throwing beats and stuff back, and it was bloody awesome. And this DJ once said that before he would do his set, he'd walk around the audience and find out what drugs were going on. This guy was also hardcore, so he didn't take drugs because he was hard edge. And he would find out what drugs were being used, and he would tailor his set to the drugs that were being offered. And remember that, it's great stuff, man. Oh, I love your shit, man. It's great shit, man. Aliens, man, they're everywhere.
No, that's a good fucking DJ is what I'm saying. That is a good fucking DJ. Yes, you do play to the drugs that people are on.
And I learned this.
I've done those parties like out in the fucking woods in Vermont and that kind of shit. Yeah. You play to the drugs.
Yeah, and now
it'll be different every night.
Yeah. And now I learned this, and I took this with me in the bands I did. And although the music you're playing can't change much, the way you present it can. And when you play somewhere like England, England in that period of 2005 to 2012, there was a lot of drugs going on, and they were uppers. So the shows were up. And then you'd play somewhere else where it was mainly alcohol, so the shows were aggro. And remember, alcohol's a drug too, and alcohol changes the way you see and perceive music and everything around you. Yes, so is coffee. But anyway, I'll stop talking about drugs now, but I will just say that learning about, and you don't have to take them, learning about the influence of drugs on the tribe when they are listening has a lot to do with your music when you mix it, because this is going to get played in a club, and if you have 300 tracks of stuff going, people who are drunk don't want to hear that shit. They just want to hear meat and potatoes. So be aware of that. I'll shut up now. Randall, someone else's hand was up as well, but I just see Randall. I'm sorry, I went on a total rant. Randall, floor's yours. Go.
Okay, the drugs thing, drugs are terrible, and it destroys bands. From experience, I was the drunk. I just drank a lot, but I was a heavy metal guitarist, and you almost have to do that because alcohol is where that alcohol's where groove and doom metal live. Like you were saying, that's what they want. It's the boom, 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 like sharp. Just it's aggro. It's angry. The cool thing is, I don't drink anymore, and I still know how to do the angry guitar playing. So now I don't have to be a drunk, and I can play on time. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But the band I was in that was actually doing okay. We were playing in clubs and stuff when I was in the Army. I don't know how this guy ended up with drugs, because he was in the Army too. But we lost our drummer because he got caught on a piss test, and because the Army does that. And yeah, that was the end of the band, because where do you find another serious drummer in the barracks? You don't. So we were kind of done, finished. And I haven't talked to any of those guys in like 20 years. It kind of sucked, because they were cool guys to work with. Like, but at the same time, like I was saying about the whole band versus myself thing, yeah, drugs make a mess. I've been almost in bands with a lot of people, and they're just, a lot of the musicians around the area where I'm in, they're either not really serious, or they think they're serious, but they're so messy. Like, they can't show up because they're hungover, or they get there and they're so stoned out of their mind they can't do what they're supposed to do. And so, yeah, technology lets me do it myself now. So that's the conversation from earlier back around. And that's it. That's all I had.
Totally agree. Thank you very much. I'll echo that, and I'll say when I was at university, the talent pool was insane, and I have never been around such remarkably talented human beings. And I remember of the top 20 students that were going to 10 who were going to become something, like I remember about 7 of them had to drop out of the race because of drugs, because of drug addiction, because of whatever. And it's a real fucking thing. And that, comes around to musicians who just, I don't know, man. Anyway, this is all very depressing. Let's talk about something happy. I don't know if it's Dean or Adam who's on next. Take a pick.
I mean,
So if
I'm happy to slip on out, because I was going to talk about drugs anyway, and the connections between drugs, masterpieces, creativity, and the difference between drugs being bad abused and drugs being good used. But I think I just said enough about it, so moving on.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, the thing is, we see right at the moment a big influence of drugs in music, because the whole thing with codeine and all the trap music and rappers, all the people seem to be on this stuff, and
Purple drank.
slow down as fuck. It's crazy. So okay, enough of drugs. I could show you the app if you like, Endless, to jam together if you have.
Sure. I mean, like, if it's because I wanted to wrap this up kind of nowish.
Okay.
But I mean, like, unless somebody else has something they want to close up with, perhaps us doing before we, of course, stream to MTV TV, we're going to all shoot on over there and get a face full. Unless anybody else has something they want to throw in, a crash course in this could be a very good use of our time.
Yeah, for the next time. So
okay, I don't mind. But do you want to give us like a 30-second, half-minute, 2-minute vibe? I really actually do want to hear about it.
Maybe.
Come on.
Okay. The app is called Endless, and you have maybe I can lower the display a little bit, and you have a looper, and you can use onboard music, because you can hear this now, and I have all the loops. So, and you can play to this. So, if you like, with and now you have a loop, and some other guy can join in and create other loops with this, and do all the crazy stuff with it, with effects and recording your own synths with Ableton Link synced up, so you have all the loops in time. It's really great. So you can stick an audio interface on it and jam with it.
That's awesome. And it's real time.
Yeah. It's real time.
Wow. That's cool. That's very cool.
We have an complete jam online on our Sequencer Talk YouTube channel.
You should pimp that
if you
right
like.
now. Pimp it. What's the put the URL in the thing, and I'm gonna, and Diana, if you can grab that URL and then put it into the bloody Twitch chat, because it's a bloody good show.
Thanks.
Oh, Struth, I don't want to do that.
Very, very briefly, those kind of apps are popular in the portablism scene, and if you don't know,
it's really great.
Yeah, okay.
So the funny thing is, it's really you can export it if you got the Pro version. So it's free, and if you like to join in more completely, you can export all the stamps and all the tracks in Ableton or something. So it's really great to grab some beats or some stuff other people do on loop based and get into it. So
that's bloody
that's
awesome.
the point. Maybe we can try this the next time, or you try to join. I send it an invite here in the chat, in the internal, and
yes, do
you
that.
can jump on it.
Do that. And if anybody,
for the next time.
Yeah. Or if people want to actually download that now, and jump on it and fuck around with it now, if that's how it works, that could be a good thing too.
Maybe.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna call it there, unless anybody else has anything final to say. Seth, I just have a feeling you're busting to say something. Yeah. No? All right. Well, thank you for your input, everyone. And reminder, if you're cold and naked, Angel Spit's new merch is in. I should put a link to Angel Spit's new merch. And I should also say, follow goddamn Angel Spit's Patreon, because crazy shit's always there. Follow the goddamn Twitch, because, oh my God, it's just the place to be, like space. There's the merch, and a lot of it's selling out. So if you want to go and wear, and it's, look at this. How very fucked up is that? I know. I mean, you guys are bloody awesome. And I want to thank everybody who was in the Twitch. The chat's been great today. And on YouTube. And no one's on Facebook, because fuck Facebook. And no one's on Periscope, because who cares about Twitch? I mean, Twitter. That's it. Dean, I see your hand up. Is there something else you wanted to add?
Yeah, okay. Is here anybody a shortcut for the mic? Okay. Maybe we can talk about synths the next time a little bit more. I got some new stuff coming up.
Cool. Maybe. I love that.
France.
What's that?
A kind of 303 on steroids.
Excellent.
You can modulate everything.
Fantastic. That sounds great. I think I am open to all of these possibilities. And we shall throw all of this into the pit of, let's mash our brains and create madness. And thank you, everybody, for bloody being here and everything. And we're gonna kill this thing in like 30 seconds. So everybody wave like it's the Brady Bunch.